Good morning and welcome to KidNuz. I'm Tori. Today is Tuesday, February 2nd, 2021. And we begin with millions of people digging out of the massive storm that dumped a lot of snow on the eastern parts of the U.S. and brought travel to a halt. At one point in New York City, the snow came down at a rate of 2 to 4 inches an hour, prompting LaGuardia Airport to throw up the white flag and cancel all flights. Nearby airports stayed open, but just barely. To keep drivers off the road, many districts switched in-person learning to remote, while even some Zoom classes got called off altogether. COVID shots also took a hit, with many appointments getting rescheduled. The storm is the strongest in years, but should taper off by tomorrow. Now, you may be wondering if all the talk of global warming will mean fewer big snowstorms like this. But David Robinson, a New Jersey state climatologist, tells the Washington Post the answer is no. He explains that to get snow, you need cold air, but not too cold, since that prevents moisture from forming. So warmer winters could lead to more snow, not less. Today is Groundhog Day, and there's a lot of attention on the movements of Punxsutawney Phil. By the time you're hearing this, a groundhog in western Pennsylvania will have already made his prediction on the weather. According to legend, if he sees his shadow, that means 6 more weeks of winter. But if the furry creature does not, then we get an early spring. As with everything else during the pandemic, the traditional ceremony was different this year. Normally, thousands of people gather early in the morning every February 2nd to witness the event. But there were no guests this time. Instead, it was streamed live on groundhog.org. Another victim of the pandemic, Toys R Us. The well-known toy retailer is closing the only 2 stores it had reopened in its bid for a U.S. comeback, one in New Jersey, the other in Texas. The decision was due primarily to COVID, with many people avoiding stores and preferring to shop online. A company spokesperson tells CNBC that there's still a big demand for toys, with sales up 16% last year. So the company plans to shift resources toward opening new locations where there are more shoppers, though it may take some time for people to be comfortable enough to head back to the malls. In the meantime, the Toys R Us website is still up and running. Regular KidNuz listeners may remember the story of British Army Captain Tom Moore, who marked his 100th birthday by walking 100 laps in his garden at the start of the pandemic last spring and ended up raising millions to support overwhelmed healthcare workers. Now, his daughter just announced that the World War II veteran has been diagnosed with the virus. He'd been battling pneumonia for a few weeks, which is why he hadn't received the vaccine yet. The captain is currently in the hospital, and thousands of people, including many celebrities, are sending him their well wishes. First, there was lab-grown meat. Now there's another artificially developed concept that could help the planet: lab-grown wood. Researchers at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology recently created a material that mimics wood from real trees. The scientists use cells harvested from zinnia leaves, a plant known for its colorful flowers. Those cells are then treated in a series of complex steps so they grow into a rigid structure that looks and feels like actual wood. And using a method similar to 3D printing, the material could be designed to grow into specific shapes, like fully formed tables and chairs. While this concept is still very much a work in progress, the researchers say it's definitely worth pursuing as a way to save precious resources and preserve forests for future generations. The highest honor in children's literature is the John Newbery Medal, and the 2021 winner is a book called When You Trap a Tiger by Tay Keller. It's a story about a girl whose family moves in with her sick grandmother. A magical tiger from Korean folklore appears to the girl and offers her a deal to help her grandmother get better. The Newbery is the oldest children's book award in the U.S., and it was first given out in 1922. It's named after an 18th century author who is the first known person to specialize in books for kids. That's it for KidNuz. We are so grateful for the support of all our generous donors, which help keep this podcast of news just for kids going every day. If you'd like to make a tax-deductible donation through our fiscal sponsor, IAM, please go to our website, www.kidnews.org. Now, our KidNuz quiz. What animal is used to predict if we'll have 6 more weeks of winter or an early spring? A groundhog. Which retailer just shut down its only 2 comeback stores in the U.S.? Toys R Us. What did scientists use to create lab-grown wood? The leaves of zinnia plants. What's the name of the kids' book that won this year's John Newbery Medal? When You Trap a Tiger. In One for the Road, the origins of Groundhog Day date back to the ancient European celebration of Candlemas, halfway between the beginning of winter and the start of spring. The tradition of using a groundhog near the small town of Punxsutawney to predict the weather started back in 1887. It was the brainchild of a local newspaper editor who created a club to build up enthusiasm. Members dress formally with top hats and also supposedly speak in groundhogese. You might be wondering about the animal's accuracy. According to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, not very. In the last 100-plus years, Phil has only made the correct prediction about 40% of the time. Before we go, we want to give a big KidNuz shout-out to some of our terrific teachers playing our podcast in their class. Mrs. Collins and her Chango Cheetahs at Chango Elementary in Ballston Lake, New York. Mrs. Friedman, who listens every day with her class at Carlton in San Jose, California. Ms. Johnson at Gary Lighthouse Upper Academy in Gary, Indiana. And Mrs. Clark in Laranger Memorial School in Old Orchard Beach, Maine, where the students are in class 4 days a week, wear their masks, and are super kind to each other. And one more shout out to Cole Utter, because KidNuz loves kids who love news, and Cole, an 11-year-old from Seattle, has started his own YouTube channel to share sports highlights. Way to go, Cole! Keep up the good work. Thanks to everyone for listening, and we hope you tune in for more KidNuz tomorrow morning.